Hello and welcome. And we're sorry about some technical issues that we're experiencing. Um, Welcome to our final webinar of the Spotlight series on bringing digital HR to life. My name is Michael Sharadsky and I'm going to be your host for this session. Today's webinar will be split up into two parts. James Eastwood will start off by speaking about bringing digital HR to life, and Sangamesh Bagali will take over the second part to talk about AI-enabled workforce planning. We highly recommend that you call into this webinar from your mobile using local numbers provided. For best experience, please also close all your other applications for duration of this webinar. This webinar will take approximately 1 hour, including a short Q&A session after each topic. Since everyone on this call has been muted, please type your questions into your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will bring them up during the Q&A session. Now, without further ado, I will hand over to our presenters.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Eastwood. I work within Capgemini's business services team. I'm responsible for delivering HR services to some of our largest global clients. In my session this morning, I'd like to share with you an actual case study and the journey that we've been on with one of our largest global clients, an organization called Syngenta that we've been working with for a number of years. And I'd like to share with you the journey that we've been on and how we have actually brought digital HR to life in the real world with a real client. So just to give you a brief introduction of Syngenta, if you haven't heard of them, they are one of the world's largest agrochemical companies. They operate in 96 countries around the world. They employ about 30,000 employees. And their business is all about feeding the world. They focus a lot on crop protection. They have a seeds business. So it's a pleasure for me and my team to work with an organization that's got such a sort of a noble cause as we try to feed a growing population around the world with fewer natural resources. In terms of bringing digital HR to life with Syngenta, it's not been a story of something that happened overnight. As you all know, digital technology and HR technology has come on significantly in the last few years. HR and HR tech has been disrupted just like other industries have. But our actual relationship with Syngenta goes right back to 2010, where we started working in a more sort of traditional outsourcing type of relationship, where we were streamlining and standardizing. But then, particularly over the last 5 years, as we've seen the improvement in digital HR tools, we've really been leveraging that potential with Syngenta, and we describe it as bringing HR potential to life within Syngenta. I won't take you through the whole timeline. The purpose of not today is to give you that sort of a year-by-year story of what we did. That wouldn't be that interesting, but really to focus on the things that have made a difference in our digital journey. But before I go any further, let me just give you an overview of the sort of the size and the scale on what we're actually talking about in this sort of scope of service, because HR is of course many things. So my team consists of 200 people. We operate out of 4 different centres around the world. We also cooperate with a centre in Montevideo, which is actually a Syngenta managed centre. So our network is a combination of Capgemini managed centres and one Syngenta centre. In terms of my team, we focus on the 20 largest countries within the Syngenta organisation. We speak 11 different languages, and you can see on the left the very broad scope of services that we provide. So a real sort of from hire to retire scope of services. Okay, so that just gives you a bit of a sort of a feel and an overview for me and my client and how my team is sort of structured. But the reason for joining today's webinar, I think, is for you to get an understanding of really, you know, how did we do it and what made the difference, or what were the drivers behind our journey to move to digital HR. So At this point, what I'd like to do is just ask Michael to run a quick poll here with you on the call, just to get your view in terms of bringing digital HR to life. We'd be interested to know which of these areas for you is most important. So I think the poll's open. Michael, do you want to take control at this point?
Yes, the poll is open. You are welcome to answer it. Like James said, what is the most important? And the answers are multiple choice where you can pick a couple of answers if you wish to do so. And they are customer experience, value, technology, automation, or partnership. So we'll give you a little bit of time to pick your answers. And once I see that majority has answered, I'll hand over back to you, James. Once again, the question is, bringing digital HR to life, what is most important? Customer experience, value, technology, automation, or partnership? Now I will be closing the poll. James, I see that the answers are actually pretty even. There is no clear winner here. Although customer experience would have probably the most percentage-wise. Back to you,
Great.
James.
Thank you very much. So I think what we're picking up there from our quick poll really is just how digital HR can help in all of these areas. It's not one particular driver behind digital HR, but the opportunity to improve things in all of these areas. And this is how we sort of measure our success with our clients. We called out these 5 things as sort of the fundamental things that will determine whether we have been successful in our mission to digitalize HR. So let me give you an insight going through sort of these and to share with you just sort of what impact we've been able to have in each of these different areas. So in terms of the customer experience, and what we're looking at here are the actual sort of voice of the customer, the Syngenta employees and managers that use our services on a day-to-day basis. And you can see here the significant improvement in the perception of service in the eyes of the HR customers, the employees themselves. So when we started working together, after we completed the initial go-lives, the perception of HR in Syngenta was not good. There were too many black holes. People didn't feel as though they were getting a fast response, a complete response. They didn't think they were being treated as a human. So working very much with Syngenta, we wanted to understand, how do we deliver the service with the right brand? How do we deliver a colleague-to-colleague service? How do we deliver a service that people actually understand that we care about what we do? So the technology aspect of that really didn't kick in until sort of getting towards 2016. We were really living with legacy technology back in 2005, but we were still able to drive a significant improvement in the experience. So it's not all about the technology that improves the experience. There were some real sort of basics of delivering a good customer service that we implemented as well. But then we did leverage the technology, and we did raise the bar by moving to better technology, cloud-based tools, improving that sort of service wrapper that sits around the digital technologies that we brought into play. And you can see we were going up, but in 2018, we came down again. You can see we went from 90% overall global satisfaction down to 85. And the reason for that is it was the next stage in the evolution of the digital technology, and we implemented Workday and ServiceNow and rolled out a whole range of additional things that managers could do for themselves online 24/7. And it was just that going through that change process that led to that drop, because for the first time, managers and employees were being asked to do something differently. And we actually expected that the percentage there on service standards to drop much more than it did, if we were honest. We think that dropping to 85 was actually a fantastic result, bearing in mind we went live across 96 countries in one big bang, in one go, with everything changing for people at one time. And then over the next 12 months, we then recovered from that position, and we're actually just under 92% today. So a really powerful story there in terms of the customer experience. Moving on to value, what we've found is that digital HR has really helped us to deliver exceptional value for our clients. So what we're looking at here is the price for all the services that we deliver to Syngenta on a like-for-like basis. So the scope of work has stayed the same over the last 5 years. We're still supporting approximately the same number of employees, and we're doing what we did 5 years ago. But that cost to the client has significantly reduced over that time period as well. So digital HR has really helped us to deliver and delight our clients because we've been able to pass back the efficiency savings that we've been able to generate. And we've been able to achieve that by really leveraging automation and becoming very efficient at what we do. So I like telling this story because when I joined the organization, I had an enormous team. I had 450 people working for me, delivering HR for our clients all over the globe. And again, what we do today is the same as what we did 5 years ago, but I've got 200 people in my team today, and that's through using better tools, more self-service, more digital connectivity, servicing employees in a different way, and using automation and using our ESOL methodology that we apply when we're looking at opportunities to drive efficiency. And those combined, that reduction in the FTE has enabled us to deliver that value. And as you saw from the previous illustration, it hasn't come at a cost of a worse service for the actual customer. We've been able to reduce cost and improve the overall service experience in parallel. So choosing the right technology is important. It's not the be-all and end-all, because remember, even with the legacy SAP technology, we were still able to get that customer experience up to sort of 85%, 90% satisfaction levels. But better tools do make a difference, but you need to implement them as part of the ecosystem. You need to connect them in the right way so it doesn't become just a collection of different tools that users have to remember. But by going through this journey of moving away from old-fashioned, traditional, clunky tools, we've been able to plot that journey, moving to cloud, moving through automation, deploying robots in the right place. And now we're at a really fantastic point in our journey because we're really sort of pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And we're working with partners in HR and different providers and working with Syngenta in a much more connected way, I would describe it. We have innovation forums where we come together and we discuss not particular issues anymore or where we're not getting it right, but we're able to talk about new tools and new technology and what's coming out from ServiceNow or what's coming out from Workday and whether we can leverage that, whether it is relevant, whether it's fit for purpose. But by working collectively with Syngenta, we make sure we implement technology in a joined up way. And so the final piece, that partnership, if you are as an organization working with partners, whether that's vendors or outsourcing partners like ourselves, it's really important to set the tone of that partnership at the beginning, because it drives everything. We wouldn't have improved the customer experience if we weren't working on it together, if we weren't working as one team, going through that, looking at all sides of the service experience. We work together as partners in achieving industry recognition. So we were proud to talk about what we'd achieved together openly into the market, into the industry. We work with analysts together who are very keen to understand more about the journey that we've been on with a big global client. And the really nice point is that we've been able to pick up awards in the industry as well. So our peers in the HR market have actually recognized us for what we've done as well. So it's not just Capgemini talking about what we've done. It's not just Syngenta talking about what we've done. It's actually the market and analysts in the market that are recognizing that there's actually something quite special that we've achieved here. But there's also a sense of we're also very humble about what we've achieved, and we know we're not the finished article. We've gone through transformation, and just to give you a sense, I'll let this slide play out as I talk, but we've achieved what we've done by not just focusing on one or two big opportunities, but by really taking this, as I said, this holistic approach to looking at technology, thinking about people, thinking about the experience, and year on year building on what we did the year before. So you can see on the left of this visual the different areas of HR that we work in, and on the right, as you can see, going from left to right, you can see the journey that we've been on. So every area has been what we call reimagined over the last 5 years, and to help us to drive that, what's really helped our partnership is having this very powerful command center sitting at the heart of what we do. So our command center a few years ago used to be, what I describe as a team of sort of data geeks, people that would be working pretty much in Excel, working with numbers, working in a detached way, producing reports that we'd look at on a monthly basis in a very sort of traditional way. Whereas we completely reinvented that. We changed the way that the command center, the tools that the command center use, the way we communicate is all done digitally. We don't use Excel. We don't even use PowerPoint internally and externally with our clients. And our command center is used on a day-to-day basis by our teams, by our clients, and it's a tremendous way, a very powerful way for us to drive everything, the experience, the value, tracking the automation, tracking the projects, not just looking at KPIs and SLAs, but looking at everything, looking at the way we communicate and the way that we bring all of that together. And it's been the secret. Our command center and our Reimagine hub has really been the secret behind this very, powerful partnership that we've been lucky enough to enjoy with Syngenta over the last few years. So that sort of brings me to a real sort of whistle-stop tour of how we've sort of been able to bring digital HR to life with Syngenta. I hope that's been interesting. I hope that's been relevant and has given you an insight into how we've been able to progress and how we've achieved what we have with Syngenta. But I'll pause at this point and happy to open it up for any questions that anybody on the call might have.
Thank you, James. Yes, we have a few questions actually. And the first question would be, let me just get up the panel. Does the command center connect with data from other clients also?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Yes, it does, because what I've been focusing on this morning is just one of our clients. We actually have 20 different HR logos that you would recognize. And our command center is really at the heart, not just of each client on a one-by-one basis, but also bringing in data from our different HR clients. So what we're able to do then is to sort of look across the piece and use that to provide benchmark data so that we can be understanding more about why certain clients are ahead of others and how we can help clients who are behind the benchmark, who are behind the curve, to improve that and to bring everybody up to a consistent level. So what we're able to do is to make sure that what works for certain clients, we're able to share that and to get the benefit of that across a wider client base. But that's a really good question, and our command center has an architecture layer that spans right across all of our clients that we have. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, James. I'm certain it does. Then we got one more question from the audience. Was the cost of implementing new technology taken into account as the price per year, price/year came down, or is the implementation cost an additional investment?
That is a really good question as well. It's a difficult one to give a sort of a one sentence answer to, really, because there's different ways that the technology can be sort of financed. Sometimes we will provide a service that includes the technology. So the learning management system that we implemented back in 2005, we implemented that and we managed all the license costs associated with that, as well as the support wrapper that went around that. So when we were working on the business case for that with Syngenta, that was something from our side that we were able to say, okay, these are the numbers, this is what the business case looks like. And then we were able to leverage that within Syngenta, and we were able to spread that cost out by providing what we would describe as a service catalog. So in this example, it was a central part of Syngenta that said, yes, this makes sense from a business perspective, and they took they made the step to make that initial investment, but then we were able to share the cost of it out across the functions that were then benefiting from that. It wasn't something that necessarily was going to be financed centrally. Some of the innovation is funded by ourselves, some of it is funded by Syngenta, so we actually have an innovation fund, and every month there's a fixed amount of money that we've set aside to help us with innovation. And these are not necessarily innovations like a new learning system or a new talent platform. This is just money to innovate with the things that we currently have to help things move more smoothly, to generate an efficiency, without needing a lot of governance around it, without needing a big business case that needs to go to an exco or board approval. So that has actually freed us up to move and work in a much more agile way in the technology and innovation space, as well as, working on the more sort of traditional, let's take a step back and do a business case as well. So there's different flavors to that. And the interesting one of the things that we're really proud about that we did, the decision to move to Workday, or the investment that's required to move to a system like Workday, is a big one. And what Syngenta wanted to make sure of was that they would be able to generate savings on the back of that. So we actually took a leap of faith in our pricing model with Syngenta when we were looking at the numbers around that, and Syngenta was saying, well, look, Workday doesn't come cheap. In order for this to make financial sense, we really need to be certain that the cost of service is going to drop as a result of this. So we took a leap of faith that we could work together, hand in hand, to do anything that we could to reduce unnecessary work effort in the HR teams, whether that was the Capgemini team or the Syngenta teams that we work with in the local countries. We were working hand in hand to reduce things. So very different model. We've moved completely away from an FTE-based model where Syngenta was sort of paying us for how many people we had working for them. We turned it on its head completely, and we moved to a model where Syngenta were paying us to deliver what we call life cycle pricing, but the FTE number was their number. So they were paying us to deliver a service based on how many people they had, not how many people we had. And that price point that we agreed was something that we didn't have line of sight to at the beginning. So we took a leap of faith that over the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, with the rate that technology is moving and the opportunities that we expected to come with automation and self-service, that we'd be able to get there over a longer time period. So we were sharing the risk and sharing the gain around the benefits that digital technology was bringing there. Sorry for the long answer on that, but that is really a really important question, and there's a number of different ways that technology can be financed.
Thank you, James. No worries. We can just go over to Sangamesh now, since we did not receive any further questions from our audience today. So Sangamesh, if you're ready, please turn on your camera, and I'll make you the presenter now. Also, you're on mute, Sangamesh, so you can unmute yourself. Now we hear you.
Just an apology. Please wait for a minute before I get started. There's an announcement going on here.
Okay. Are you ready to present now, or do you need a minute because of the announcement going on in your office?
Yeah, no, I'm ready to start now. So,
okay.
Very good morning to everyone who have joined today's session. So I'm Sangamesh. I'm part of the Capgemini India Portfolio Solutions organization, and I have a role to play in the consumer goods distribution and transportation sectors, wherein we bring in sector-specific insights to the solutions we take to our clients. And one of my areas of focus is also how can organization, to help organizations to essentially leverage AI and machine learning to basically enhance their productivity, to enhance and optimize their business processes, and also drive business performance improvement by leveraging AI and machine learning. Now, in the context of HR, particularly when more and more organizations are focusing on digitizing all their HR processes, obviously workforce planning is one critical element to the whole puzzle in terms of ensuring you have the right workforce within the organization. Now, how can we leverage AI? So that's where my session today is going to be focused on. And I will be starting off with giving just an overview across enterprises. How is it that AI can help in forecasting for their labor requirements, short term, medium term, and long term. Then I'll quickly jump into a sample use case to illustrate my point of view on how AI can help in essentially making workforce planning more seamless and accurate using AI. And once we are done with the use case, I'll also do a quick demo of how a solution can be put together along these lines for a use case that is relevant to your organization. So that's what I'll be doing today. I'll start off by saying, normally in any enterprise, you might appreciate that the forecast for any labor requirement within any division within the organization is tied to multiple factors. The main key drivers, however, are what is the key factor in driving the labor requirement is obviously the associated sales. So obviously, when you have sales or demand for whatever the products or services that an organization is selling, the labor requirements also will accordingly vary. So sales and demand, the history of the work assignments and punches, which actually is a record of what has happened in the past, where your workforce has logged in and recorded their time that they spent on various activities that they do according to their job description. Then that would be an important parameter, obviously. And to perform each of those assignments or jobs, what is the mapping skill that is required is also an important parameter. Then obviously the productivity standards for each job and the labor laws. If there's an enterprise which is operating in shifts, or it's just a regular shift or multiple shifts for various divisions within the organization, the shift plan is also an important driver or a parameter to determine your labor requirements. Statistically speaking, if you were to see, all traditionally you will have organizations using forecasting models that are based on pure statistics, and the above drivers or inputs are taken into consideration to arrive at a forecast of what is your labor need or a requirement by each skill or a job type. This can be done at a granular level for the immediate week or a month by shifts, or the longer and the medium term objective is to how do you forecast your labor needs from a half yearly and an annual basis as well, more from a budgeting perspective. So it's from a strategic perspective, it's more required for accurate budgeting so that you have your labor requirements covered for the year, and then a shorter term, it will be more to plan for the shifts in essence. Whereas now, how do we use AI and machine learning here, right? While traditional statistical models can take into consideration all of these parameters and come up with a reasonably accurate forecast, but given the dynamic nature of work and the business itself is changing quite dramatically in these days, and particularly the COVID situation, and there's a lot more rapid changes occurring to business models. Now, if your employees base or your workforce has to be aligned to that, then obviously you need to be on top of that. So where AI and machine learning will help essentially is to take into consideration not only the traditional inputs and drivers that drive the labor requirement, but also unstructured data that are key drivers, may or may not be for across all the different enterprises in different industry sectors, but these are some other examples, in terms of whether it is temperature or rain or snow that is forecast, any adverse events that have occurred historically, and events that are forecasted or planned. So those could also be key inputs, and more importantly, sentiments on the social media or any customer surveys that you would do, which are more of unstructured in nature. You could help that figure out what is the is driving the sales or a demand. Now, if sales or demand for an organization is dropping, then your labor requirements would also be impacted, and that's where these unstructured inputs would essentially play a key role in accurately forecasting what your labor requirements are. Right. So that's just a quick overview of how AI and machine learning can help, because it can learn from both structured and unstructured data. The models are nowadays more sophisticated, and they can take into consideration and accurately predict what is the impact of various factors on your labor requirements. So I'll now hand over to Michael, if you can quickly run the poll for me and see. I would like to understand what some of our audiences are saying with respect to the usage of AI and machine learning.
Yes, sir, I will do it right away. So the poll is launched now, and the question is, have you used AI machine learning enabled labor forecasting models for workforce planning and budgeting? And here you only can select one answer. Yes, I have. No, I have not. I have not, but think my organization has. I am not aware. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer it. and then we will go back to you, Sangamesh. I'll leave the poll open for a few more seconds. And I will be closing the poll now. So there are some answers which say I am not aware, but there are also a couple that said yes, I have, and I have not, but think my organization has. It's split up pretty evenly, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thanks to the audience for providing your responses to the poll questions. So now I'll move on to the use case that I was referring to. So this is one use case where a leading postal operator, which is obviously run by the government in this country, they had multiple challenges in coming up with accurate labor forecasts, and this is specifically to do with their postal terminals. So as you all know, the letters and packages that are dispatched from the postal service worldwide are dropping rapidly by the year, and that has resulted into a challenge where they're not able to predict what is the volume of letter that I need to process and handle at my terminals, and what is the labor I need to have to proactively plan for. So that's the challenge they had. And in over and above that, given the dynamic nature, they were not able to use any of the traditional forecasting methods. So they had a very manual way, an approach to do their labor planning and focus what is their actual labor requirements. And the method that they were using, obviously, it was traditional, so the accuracy was also not as up to the desired level. So while they had a decent enough accuracy for short-term focus, for medium to long-term focus, it was quite low, the 60 to 70% range. Now, when it comes to because of the inaccuracies they had in labor forecast, they always had a scenario where in some scenarios for some terminals they had excess of labor that they are planned, and there was a shortage of labor in some other terminals, right? And also wherever there was a shortage, then obviously they could not deliver the service. So in many countries, the postal operators, the post office has to deliver the mail to the intended recipient no more than 2 to 3 days, right? Whereas there was a significant delay when they were always falling short of this labor. So that's the background and the scenario for the use case that I'm referring to. So how do we improve the accuracy of the forecasting model and predict accurately what is the number of contract labor as well as permanent employees they need to plan by shift at each of the terminals, and also budget for that labor ahead of time by in the biannual semi-year planning process, right? So that's what they had to do. So, and given the dropping volumes of letters that they need to process, a lot of the terminals were being shut down as well. So which means a lot of the historical information that is essential to train the forecasting model and have the ability to develop an accurate forecast was also limited. So which means we had to do a lot of data mapping and transformation prior to feeding that into a forecasting model. So which is why given the factored challenges that we were faced with, what we did was we identified an AI-enabled solution. We initially began with testing the waters using a simple desktop-based solution, which can rapidly iterate in an agile manner and come up with the prediction to assess the quality of data as well as look at the accuracy level of the model without too much of data transformation and process changes that you have to do. So, and that is the approach we took. And if I go into the next page here, so we had to try multiple models. So I'm sorry, I'm going back here. So we tried multiple regression techniques to come up with accurate predictions, but eventually we settled with a deep learning regression model to accurately predict what is the model that we'll stick to and deploy and scale that for the terminal labor forecast. So that's what we did. Now, but if you notice, the main driver for coming up with the forecast here is the actual forecast of the letter volumes itself. So you need to have a reasonably accurate view of how many letters you can expect at the terminals, which need to be sorted and distributed to the intended recipients. So, and then use that as input to arrive at what is the forecast of your labor for each of the terminals. Now, so we took a two-step approach in order to make that happen. So the first step was we developed a model, which is again a deep learning model to predict the letter volume itself. And the next step was to then predict the number of labor hours that are required at a granular level, so that we can use that to arrive at deducing what is essentially the number of associates, both full-time and contract labor, you need to have to run your operations. So some of the data that we looked at was obviously historical data in terms of letter volumes, letter types, what is the process that were followed in the terminal to distribute and sort the letters. And in many postal terminals, there were machines which kind of automate the whole process, but you still need operators for those machines which help in sorting the letters. Then, while that was all available internally within the enterprise, we also took a lot of unstructured external data in terms of weather, holidays, and events to arrive at what is the prediction of forecast of what is the letter volume that you can expect by shift, by day, both short term as well as long term. And we were able to accomplish a 17% improvement in the prediction accuracy. And likewise, the letter volume was then taken as input to essentially predict what is the number of labor hours that you need to plan for each activity in the terminal for each shift. So we saw that we were able to improve the forecast accuracy by more than 13%. And that's what we were able to achieve in a quick proof of value for this enterprise, and and also recommend a lot of process changes to the way the terminal operations were set, and also in terms of data quality, so that the model forecasting model accuracy can also improve even further. So that is what we were able to accomplish. And so now I'm going to quickly do a demo of a simulator wherein for the use case that I just spoke of, we can also get a feel for how a simulator could look like. Although the solution itself is something that we have to tightly integrate with their planning application. So on a standalone basis, if you were to interact with the model, the deep learning model, and get a feel for how the prediction can change given the various input drivers in terms of be it letter volume or be it the shift for which you're trying to predict, all the temperature, what is the impact of temperature, and if there is any, if you're predicting a rain for a specific day, what is the impact of that on the letter volume that you're predicting. So that's a quick view of the simulation of the model. So here the model can also tell you what is the correlation of the prediction in terms of how many hours you need to plan for by means of changing the letter volume. What is the correlation coefficient? What is the impact of shift? What is the impact of weather? and the process for which you're trying to predict the labor. So this is something that we could replicate and plan for in a similar context, but in a different industry sector as well, or a different division where you're trying to forecast and predict your labor requirements, both for a short term and long term. So while at a granular level for a specific day and a shift and a process and a terminal, here you could get the prediction of what is the number of hours you need to plan for. You can aggregate them, and then determine what are your number of employees you need to hire on a permanent basis, plan for a permanent basis, as well as contractual labor if there is a spike in demand only for a short term. So that's a quick view. Michael, I'm happy to take questions if there are any at this point.
Yes, thank you very much, Sangamesh. There is a question to you. I'll just pull up the panel again. And the question is, can you give a few other examples of where such AI-enabled workforce planning can be put to use?
Sure. So there are quite a few similar examples in the retail operations scenario. For example, for a supermarket store, for all the back office functions, particularly which are very time bound in terms of receiving goods into the store, or in terms of stocking the shelves, there are already well established solutions in the marketplace. But where for retail store formats where these operations become very dynamic in nature, particularly for the mom and pop stores or the smaller size stores where they do not have a control on when they can plan for those operations, because they are also dependent on the suppliers who are working with them, for example. So in such scenarios, we've applied this to arrive at what is the labor requirement that you need for a specific time of day, and also how that pattern changes by day of week, and also by the patterns in terms of quarterly basis, in terms of the seasonality, in terms of effect of holidays and so on, because that is the main driver in determining availability of labor as well. So expecting for attrition, how we could plan for labor and proactively ensure you have a hiring plan in place. So that's where this model would also play a very good helping hand. And even in IT service desk or any help desk for that matter, where there are a lot of drivers in terms of number of incidents, number of customer calls, number of calls internally that you would be sourcing for any enterprise, we can break down the number of service desk personnel that you need and predict that requirement by time of day, by shift, and also for for a longer term as well, and give a recommendation. The model can give a recommendation, and that is aligned to the dynamic patterns as well that impact the incident volume or the customer call volumes, and hence the impact of that in terms of determining how many service desk staff you need to accurately plan for, so that there is no customer service impact. So these are few of the use cases. Like this, there are many such use cases that you can think through across the multiple divisions within an organization, and also multiple industry sectors as well.
Thank you very much, Sangamesh. I think time-wise we're good. We do not have any further questions. I think that was a really good answer, and I would like to thank our attendees for joining us today, as well as I would like to thank you, Sangamesh and James, for very valuable presentations. Thanks to everybody who has been with us all week. I've seen a few names pop up every day. We would like to thank you very much for joining us. And if we will not see you before the summer, I would like to wish everybody a nice summer, and for now, a nice weekend. So thank you very much. Would you like to have a few last words, James and Sangamesh?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all, the
Yeah,
audience.
likewise. Thank Thank you for joining. I hope that was useful and interesting for you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for organizing this.
Thanks, Sangamesh. Bye.